But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Being kind is the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And this is the stream where we look at all sorts of interesting ghouls and see what kind of bullshit they're on this week. Hello, Adam. How you doing? Let me just scroll to the bottom as we get prepared. Here we go. Got a whole collection of shit here. There's a scumbag who I was first made aware of by a Thought Slime video called Tyler Oliveira. His thing is that he claims to have investigated things, which is to say he makes up all sorts of fear-mongering right-wing bullshit. And this one is, I investigated the city that banned police. This is from 9 months ago. When I saw that title, I thought it might have been from 2020. I've also got some Darman shit. Stressful, but not bad. I mean, a lot of just this whole the whole situation in Lebanon is fucking worrisome as hell. But on a personal level, I've had worse weeks. I did, however, have an edible last night, and I bit off a little bit more of it than I really should have, and so I've been low-key buzzing all day. So if I seem more scatterbrained than usual. Let's see, we've also got some stuff. Thought I'd see what's going on with the Zionist ghouls over at JNS TV. And they've got a couple that will definitely age well. There's one that I thought was looked particularly interesting. Because the editor-in-chief of JNS TV, Jonathan Tobin, has a thing. A fake anti-Semitism controversy drowned out a real one. And I think that's going to be interesting. It's apparently Trump said some anti-Semitic shit. And they're saying that, that, but they are really doing a good job here, I would imagine, of showing that Zionists literally are trying to avoid actually dealing with real anti-Semitism because their best friends are anti-Semitic as hell. Well, and so actually calling this fake anti-Semitism is quite illustrative in that regard. Yeah, I mean, the U.S. has troops at the ready. I mean, which is fucking wild. It really, I mean, they've been way more directly involved in this than they've ever openly admitted. We have, reports from people who were held in the concentration camps and report seeing people with U.S. uniforms there and stuff like that. But it's been sort of a low-key sort of background presence so far. But now they're suggesting that if Israel can't hack it in this invasion of Lebanon, and so far they are not. I mean, they are great when it comes to destroying defenseless people from the air, because their fucking pilots only ever attack people who have no air defenses. So it's literally probably the safest flying gig in the world. Extreme short-haul flights, and as long as the plane itself is in good shape, they're not going to have any problems. I mean, they're literally, it's like safer than Ryanair. So they always look invincible from the air, but on the ground, they're still not managing to get any feet on the ground for any length of time in Lebanon. They've been knocked back repeatedly, and apparently, like, according to resistance sources, are taking pretty heavy losses each time. And it seems like these troops that have been moved to the Mediterranean might be there specifically to get directly involved in this genocide if Israel can't hack it, and Israel is not looking like hacking it. Of course, that would be a huge hurdle to move over, because so far they've been saying this is nothing to do with us. Like, they distance themselves. They say it's, this is Israel. We support Israel, of course, but it's them. This is them. This is definitely not us. Don't blame us for anything they're doing. So switching over to a situation where they might have an openly acknowledged troop presence specifically involved in this invasion would be a major shift, and I mean, I question whether it's likely to happen. I mean, but it would not be good. Hello, Giga M. Hey, River Rune. Yeah, exactly. Their Air Force, I mean, they are extremely high tech. But their Air Force has never had to actually deal with anything requiring particular skill. I mean, these planes basically pilot themselves. I mean, they these days, I mean, even like a commercial airliner, the pilot is practically just there for backup a lot of the time, because the onboard systems can handle a lot of the main things that are going on. And that's certainly true in these really advanced, like, fighter bomber planes and shit like that. But yeah, they're only ever flying very short distances and always over people with no anti-aircraft defenses, which is really, really fucking easy. But you can't actually take over a country exclusively from the air. And that is the issue. Okay, I think I'm gonna... vielleicht irgendwann. I think I'm gonna start out with this one. Because I think it is going to be very, very telling. These are the Zionist ghouls over at JNS. Let me see.
Hello, and welcome to Jonathan Tobin Daily.
Oh, I love how they've decided to make it all Winnie the Pooh in a tuxedo looking. With this like classical music and the fake English accent that the guy's got there. That's really cute. I've never actually watched one of these segments. I've only ever watched the quad. The like trio of ghouls that are like the Zionist The View.
I'm JNS Editor-in-Chief Jonathan Tobin. Thanks for joining me for
Oh, it
another
isn't a faux English accent, it just sounded like one briefly.
discussion on the most pressing issues in the Jewish world. Please like, subscribe, and give us good reviews when you listen to the show.
Yeah, no, not gonna do that. Not gonna do any of those things. But I will roast the fuck out of you. How about that? Are we cool there? Is that a good compromise?
Now let's get started. Living through a period when anti-Semitism is surging both around the globe, especially in the United States, is bad enough.
Wait, okay, so he's mentioning Tucker Carlson, who is anti-Semitic as fuck, who is one of the leading purveyors in U.S. media of just straight-up anti-Semitic conspiracy theories.
But perhaps one of the most frustrating aspects of this experience is the way that the corporate media is consistently focusing
Motherfucker, you are the corporate media.
on fake and largely partisan controversies, rather than ones that point to genuine sources of rising Jew hatred on both the left and the right.
Yeah, see, and what he's about to do is tell us that actually being against Jews isn't anti-Semitic. The only thing that's really anti-Semitic is not liking what Israel does.
The kerfuffle over the remarks made by former President Donald Trump when he addressed the Israeli-American Council last week about the role Jewish voters may play in the 2024 election was a typical example of how a supposedly...
Okay, what did he say? I have a feeling they're not going to tell us. Donald Trump, anti-Semitic remark, Israeli American Association. Let's see, what did he say? Okay. Trump has also been criticized. Okay. The best friend Jewish Americans ever had in the White House. Yeah, right. Wait a second. This is old, I think. No, this is it. This is the one. But yeah, see, Jewish voters. Israel will not exist within 2 years if she becomes president, Trump said. I mean, there's a top Israeli retired general who says actually at the moment it's looking like it might not last more than 1 year, the way things are falling apart. I'm just trying to find what his actual remark was. Ah, yeah, okay, here we go. Le Monde. Of course, you have to go to Le Monde to find this. The Republican can't... Okay, Trump accuses Jewish voters of disloyalty. On September 19th, speaking at the annual conference of the Conservative Israeli-American Council, the former president raised the possibility of his defeat by Harris in the election. According to him, quote, the Jewish people would really have a lot to do with that if it happens, because at 40% of support for him, that means 60% of the people are voting for the enemy. See. Yeah. I mean, yeah, of course, what he's saying here is just a, yeah, let me just link this. When, there's the article I'm looking at, so you can look at it too if you want to. The thing is, this is anti-Semitic, but it's anti-Semitic in a way where basically Trump says it a little bit more in your face, but this particular sort of anti-Semitism, where Jews are equated to Zionism and Israel, is absolutely pervasive.
Horrific Trumpian gaffe is covered, which is to say its significance was widely overhyped by his opponents and interpreted very differently by his supporters.
Well, yeah, because his supporters don't like Jews either.
Meanwhile, the stark evidence of the seemingly unassailable influence of Tucker Carlson, former Fox News host who recently platformed an anti-Semitic conspiracy theorist.
He is an anti-Semitic conspiracy theorist.
Denier on his X show, was dismissed as a non-story or one from which they were willing to quickly move on. Coming from the same media outlets who are describing Trump.
Okay. So we're talking about it's okay, this is actually going in a direction that I was not expecting. Okay, yeah, Tucker Carlson, he definitely said something anti-Semitic because he does that very often. So okay, so why have they decided to play these two things against each other, though? Because Trump and Tucker Carlson, you would not really consider to be opposite sides.
Trump's comments with exaggerated and misleading rhetoric, it's difficult to explain. The upshot is that rather than enhance understanding of the question of anti-Semitism on the political right,
which they would never actually, JNS TV, the people who claim that Hungary, under the rule of somebody who celebrates the deportation of Hungarian Jews, is the safest place for Jews in Europe, they would never do anything to cause misunderstandings of the concept of anti-Semitism.
the public and most Jews were, as usual, being diverted into a partisan dead end rather than thinking seriously about a real problem. It also illustrated how little appetite the mainstream legacy media had for applying the same sort of scrutiny to their preferred party and candidate, Democratic presidential nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris, that they applied.
Then why the hell is... Okay, but what the hell does this have to do with... Tucker Carlson is not, like, their preferred candidate. Is the idea here Tucker Carlson's on Team Harris? Did they pick up that fucking... I mean, they've got endorsements from all the worst people. I mean, like, bar Trump. But other than that, they have been, bringing in investments from just the biggest war criminals in this century. Did they get Tucker Carlson? Like, how is he trying to make this a partisan thing? They're...
To political observers, the reactions and coverages of Trump's IAC speech should have had a familiar feel. It was much
because he said something anti-Semitic, and virtually every time he addresses a specifically Jewish audience, he says something anti-Semitic. Like, during his presidency, early on, he gave a speech to some, like, right-wing Jewish organization called Israel, of U.S. citizens, and then referred to Israel as your country, and that sort of thing.
Other controversy generated by a Trump remark since he came down the escalator at Trump Tower and onto the political scene in June 2015, which is to say, the relationship between Trump and the liberal media is similar to that between the 19th century Russian scientist Ivan Pavlov and his dogs. Trump rings a bell and...
This guy did not pick a great portrait for this still. I didn't... I didn't realize, I've never looked at one of these, so I didn't know that this was going to be, like, audio only. But this facial expression, he just looks like he needs more fiber in his diet.
Journalists and their liberal audiences, eager for more proof of the awfulness of the bad orange man and hungry for false hope that his doom is nigh, begin to salivate. What follows
and he always provides it. Like, he is a reliable provider of evidence that he's a piece of shit. That is, like, what the people who like him like about him. He is a shithead who is open about the fact that he is a shithead. You don't get a whole lot of that in the U.S. political class. Like, a lot of the, like, Republican shitheads, they say that they're a shithead because of Jesus. It's Jesus' fault or something like that. Whereas Trump's whole thing from the start has always just been that he's a piece of shit, and he's proud of it, and he owns it. And a lot of assholes look at that and they're like, wow.
Always in high dudgeon about Trump expect. Rather than finally realizing that they are tying themselves to a terrible candidate and leader, Trump's supporters ignore the outrage. Indeed, they find the controversy amusing, since they not only believe that they understand what their hero tells them.
Well, yes, and because the thing is, they like the fact that he's anti-Semitic. They, these are not things... That's the thing about, like, the way liberals play this. That's why liberals do not understand why both sides look at a Trump debate and they both claim they win. Because when you're debating somebody like this, they're playing with a totally different scorecard. Which is why you just simply cannot platform them in the first place, because their whole thing is being able to get their fucked up shit out to the public, and anytime they do that, no matter how badly humiliated they are to anyone who actually knows and gives a shit about the facts, that is considered a win. It's why, like, liberals didn't understand why Nick Griffin getting debated on the BBC years ago. Yeah, British fascist leader Nick Griffin. Also, big fan of Israel, so they'll probably have him on sometime. He's kind of faded into obscurity. Liberals in Britain were all over like, oh wow, see, we're done with fascism in Britain because he looked like an ass in this debate, and British Nazis were like, wow, he kicked ass because he got to say all the fucked up shit, and he got to say it to a national audience.
But also, that as often as not, Trump is deliberately trolling his opponents. As journalist Selena Zito summed it up in one of the most insightful pieces of political writing of the last generation, the press takes him literally but not seriously. His supporters take him seriously, but not literally.
I think a lot of them take him both.
About all of this is that after more than 9 years, the same news outlets, as well as many of the same reporters and pundits, continue to repeat the pattern that emerged in the summer of 2015, rising to snap at the bait dangled in front of them every time.
Well, no, you see, the idea to this particular right-wing ghoul is that the reason Democrats lost is that they were talking about how bad it is that Trump says white supremacist shit openly. Whereas the reality is they lost. I mean, let's leave aside the Electoral College, but the reason the Electoral College gets to have such an outsized significance is because the Democrats insist on running right-wing assholes who just say the Trump shit, but they say it a little bit more in a more genteel manner.
In this case, Trump's remarks were about why he believes his sterling record of support for Israel should impel Jewish voters to support him.
Yeah,
since he is now in the home stretch of his third presidential campaign, he realizes why the majority of Jews don't agree. Most of the liberal majority who are Democrats may care about the Jewish state to some degree, but theirs is a belief system that prioritizes the liberal social justice agenda and other standard...
Well, see, I mean, that was anti-Semitism right there. This whole idea of Israel being a Jewish state is just nonsense. First of all, the concept of a Jewish state makes no sense. Like, what does that even mean? Of course, in the case when Zionists say it, what they are saying is that it is somehow a Jewish state, and therefore we are somehow responsible for everything that it does, because Jews have more legal rights than any other ethnicity in the place.
Democratic Party positions, such as strong support for legal abortion, far more than those relating to Israel's security. And to the consternation of not just Trump, but the approximately 25 to 33% of Jews who tend to vote for Republicans, who use Israel as a litmus test issue, that still holds even in a year like this one, when the Jewish state is under attack, and American Jewry...
Oh, yeah, it's under attack. Like, yeah, it's under attack in places that don't... in places it has invaded.
Sailed by a
It's
surge
kind of
of
everywhere.
raw hate fueled by left-wing anti-Zionists. Trump's remarks were more than just an attempt to rally Jews around the blue and white flag in which he has wrapped himself. His position on anti-Semitism on college campuses is similarly strong, and one in which
which is to say, his position is that he doesn't like Jews, and he is very happy to see anti-Semitism redefined to mean, like, people who think that Palestinians should exist, shouldn't be wiped off the face of the earth. Because that actually protects him. It's like, a fucking Zionist will... You show somebody a really big anti-Semite with a lot of money and influence, Zionists will immediately flock to that person.
He has a better record than his opponents, considering his 2019 executive order, when he formally extended Title VI protections of the U.S. Civil Rights Act to Jewish students.
No, they were all... That's bullshit. He did not formally extend them to Jewish students. Jewish students were already covered by Title VI. What he did was remove Jewish students from the protection of Title VI and instead extend Title VI protection to Zionists, regardless of whether they're Jewish or not, and most of them are not.
Trump got his biggest cheer from his Jewish supporters when he promised to deport foreign jihad sympathizers, as well as stripped universities of their accreditation and federal funding unless their administrations put a stop to anti-Semitic propaganda.
Then he wouldn't be allowed to speak there.
Contrast that with Harris's declarations of understanding the campus pro-Hamas mobs.
Which is, like, not really what she said. And let's just remember, the Democrats are trying to, again, walk a tightrope where they know their voters hate what they're doing, and they have to seem like they're somewhere from a similar moral universe to that of their voters. So they have to say they kind of understand. They, the line that they had started out with, the Pelosi line, where to just declare us all, everyone who thinks the genocide sucks, enemy agents, sorry, is working like dog shit.
For them to be heard. Still, the only line from the speech that the liberal media was interested in was a typical example of Trumpian hyperbole, in which, during the course of his exhortations about the importance of the Jewish vote in the swing state, he said, in my opinion, Jewish people would have a lot to do with the loss.
Well, yeah, exactly. So he's, again, blaming Jews for any loss of his, which seems extremely unlikely. There are not that many of us, to his overwhelmingly anti-Semitic supporters. So he's already set it up. If he loses, they're going to blame Jews. That's not good.
Was immediately
actually
jumped on by publications
but Zionists
like the New York
are cool
Times
because
and
it might scare
their
Jews.
generally anti-Israel politics writer Jonathan Weissman, who is often asked to cover Jewish issues. They saw it as proof of him scapegoating Jews and setting them up to be victims of violence.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly what it is.
By his supporters, should Harris prevail in November, and therefore an egregious example of anti-Semitic incitement.
Yeah, so what you're saying is this guy Weissman, I've never heard of him, and I do not buy for a second that he's anti-Israel just because this dickhead says he is. Saw what he said and understood exactly what the implication is, because it's not the first time he's done this guy. Fucking Trump. I mean, but, so now this guy's gonna explain why inciting violence against Jews is not anti-Semitic.
Of course, no one in the crowd of Trump supporters at IAC saw it that way. For them, it was just Trump being Trump, engaging in exaggerations to make a point. In one sense, the Trump critics had him. Anything that smacks of rhetoric that can be used to blame the Jews for anything could be interpreted by extremists as a reason for anti-Semitism and even violence.
Yeah, and I mean, his supporters are known to engage in both of those things.
But what liberals who imagine that most Trump supporters are either open or closeted Jew haters don't seem to understand is that the Republican base has shown itself to be overwhelmingly pro-Israel and philo-Semitic over the years.
Ja. Es geht nicht so sehr um Heuchelei, sondern viel eher darum, dass Zionisten den Antisemitismusbegriff umbelegen wollen. Also der herkömmliche Sinn dieses Begriffs, also antijüdischer Rassismus, ist ihren Zwecken nicht zuträglich. Ne? Mit anderen Worten, also denn Zionisten verbrüdern sich ja gern und oft mit Antisemiten. Schon Herzl hat ja gesagt, die Antisemiten seien die verlässlichsten Verbündeten der zionistischen Bewegung, und so sieht die Bündnispolitik der zionistischen Bewegung seitdem aus. Schon immer. Die größten Antisemiten sind schon immer beliebte Bündnispartner der zionistischen Bewegung. Man will diesen Begriff so belegen, dass jüdische Menschen dadurch keinen Schutz erhalten, dafür aber die zionistische Bewegung, die ja mehrheitlich nicht jüdisch ist.
Even before he entered politics, many are, after all, evangelicals with an ideological and religious commitment to support the Jewish state.
Yes, because it's the place where they're going to kill us all so that Jesus will come back and give a speech that will ring kind of hollow, I guess, about fucking loving your neighbor or something.
They may share his frustration with Jews who don't appreciate how much Trump did to help Israel during his presidency.
Yeah, because why should we give a fuck about that? I mean, fuck Israel.
It is not a demographic very likely to act out against the Jewish people.
Yes, they are.
As we have learned
they talk about it openly. That is a demographic very likely to act out against the Jewish people. Like, their whole thing is that they want Israel so that they can dump us all there, whether we want it or not, so that they can bring about the end times by killing us. Like, yeah, they act out actually quite a lot against Jews. The most anti-Semitic experiences I've had in the U.S. have all involved fucking evangelicals.
Here, the same cannot be said for the Democrats' activist left-wing base. Thus,
hello,
the
Badger, how
focus
you doing?
on Trump's alleged threat against Jews, in his speech in which he reiterated his unwavering support for Israel.
Yeah, you see what he's doing there. The idea is that somehow he can't be anti-Semitic because he likes Israel. This is the whole thing. This is what Zionists offer to, like, the anti-Semitic community. That as long as they support Israel, they can claim that they're not anti-Semitic. It's the alibi. Israel exists as the Jewish friend of people like Trump.
And commitment to do something about the anti-Semitism.
Hey, Hail Satine. This is Jonathan Tobin and yeah, he is kind of a Dennis Prager clone, of JNS TV, a Zionist ghoulscape that we've occasionally looked at, but not this particular segment. And he's explaining why when Trump does anti-Semitism, it isn't anti-Semitic.
Is at best disproportionate, and at worst, misleading. Yet when faced with stark evidence of tolerance for actual anti-Semitism within the Trump camp, the same outlets crying wolf about his comments about the Jewish vote were not particularly interested or swiftly moved on, even when they were offered a golden opportunity to follow up and roast the GOP ticket. The issue was Carlson's influence within the Trump inner circle. As I noted earlier this month.
Yeah, so, the way they framed this, the way he started out was to say that this is a partisan thing. And that's why they're riding around on how Trump says anti-Semitic shit, but it's not anti-Semitic because he likes Israel, therefore who gives a shit what he has to say about Jews. but they're ignoring this other stuff that's really anti-Semitic, and he called it partisan bias. But now he's just acknowledging that his counterexample is going to be a close Trump confidant, who I'm pretty sure has actually been criticized for being really anti-Semitic in the past.
His animus toward Israel and tolerance for anti-Semites isn't new. But his decision to have podcaster Daryl Cooper on his internet show crossed a line that should have...
What line? Wait, you're saying that all these, like, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that Tucker has made a living with for, like, the better part of the last decade, that didn't cross the line, but having somebody else who does the same shit did?
Marked him as someone that mainstream politicians should avoid like the plague. While Carlson claims that he is just asking questions about history and merely trying to shed light on an issue that has been ignored, that is entirely disingenuous.
Of course it is. I mean,
Cooper,
it is.
who has done no original research, interviews, or any other work associated with actual historians, as the best and most honest popular historian in the United States. He then proceeded to nod along as Cooper claimed that, among other things, Zionist Jews bribed Winston Churchill to start a war against Germany.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Churchill and warmongering Jews are responsible for World War II. Adolf Hitler wanted peace.
Yeah. I mean, the idea, yeah, I mean, Tucker Carlson is legitimately anti-Semitic as hell. But you notice the reason that this is crossing a line, even though anti-Semitism has been Tucker Carlson's stock in trade for a long time, is that this Holocaust-denying Hitler admirer that he had on specifically made it about Zionists. Like, literally, if he had not done that, it would be okay with this jabroni. But he made it about Zionists, and what he said was bullshit. There's a lot of fucked up shit that the Zionist movement was involved in that period of history. They utterly disgraced themselves, and they've somehow managed to really avoid wearing the disgrace that they really deserve for their performance in the period. But what he was just saying, that's just standard Holocaust denial conspiracy Nazi bullshit. But the only reason this guy thinks that that's somehow crossing a line, I would bet, is that he specifically made it about Zionists.
The campaign of mass murder during the Holocaust was merely the result of a logistical snafu and is the fault of the Allies, not the Hitlerian regime. This was not merely all false, but a reiteration of Nazi propaganda from the 1930s and 40s. By platforming a conspiracy theorist like Cooper.
Platforming him? He is one! Like, what? Who did you think he was gonna have on? This is the sort of thing that Tucker Carlson has been doing for a decade now. This is so wild because, I mean, yeah, Tucker Carlson's anti-Semitic as hell. Has been for a long time. And this guy, I have absolutely no doubt that he is as much a Holocaust denier as it sounds like he is. But to act like he's crossing some sort of new line when he's been saying this sort of shit the whole time, and trying to suggest that it's partisan bias, like, he literally just admitted that Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump are tight. Because obviously they are. So, like, you can't use bias, partisan bias, to explain why the liberal media would focus on one and not the other. I mean, more likely, it's quite simply that Trump is the more important asshole of the two, since he's, like, a presidential candidate, and fuck knows what Tucker Carlson is. Just, he's an asshole on the internet.
Endorsing Holocaust denial and enabling classic fascism, a word often bandied about as an insult by the left, but that has an actual meaning.
Yeah, and okay, it's bandied about as an insult by the this is wild. He is pretzeling himself here. Because he's admitted that he's talking about a close Trump associate. And a notoriously close Trump associate. And that is kind of the context that goes into the fucked up shit that Trump says about Jews. Which is why there's no benefit of the doubt to extend to him when he says something that sounds anti-Semitic, because these are the kinds of motherfuckers he surrounds himself with. But we're somehow supposed to act surprised somehow. So, like, literally, he's got a guy that now he's one of the closest associates and one of his most prominent associates in a lot of ways. Like, certainly, in terms of media pulling power, he has a pretty big platform because of all his time at Fox News. Is a Holocaust-denying, fascist, sympathizing, anti-Semitic shit. Well, but somehow this doesn't reflect on Trump. Because if it reflected on Trump, that would fuck up his whole argument.
In addition to anti-Semitism, Carlson has become a regular member of the Trump family posse at sporting and social events in recent years. In the past, especially during the Trump presidency, that didn't translate into influence over policy. Trump's pro-Israel and extremely tough anti-Iran stands were the opposite of Carlson's opinions. But reportedly, he played an outside role in picking Ohio Senator J.D. Vance to be Trump's running mate this year.
I mean, how is he trying to make this look like it doesn't... The fact that this guy's in Trump's entourage somehow does not reflect on Trump. That is fascinating. That is truly fascinating. So he's... This is wilder than I thought, because I thought what this was going to be is Trump says something anti-Semitic, and he's saying, why are you focusing on Trump saying something anti-Semitic? It's, I mean, not really anti-Semitic, because he said something against Jews, and that's not real anti-Semitism, according to Zionists. But instead, versus, I don't know, people saying that genocide is bad. That's what I thought this was going to be. And it turns out, instead, it's... The biased liberal media want to talk about Trump being anti-Semitic, but because of their partisan bias, they somehow won't talk about the fact that a guy close to Trump is also anti-Semitic. Like, what the fuck is even your point, dude?
By liberals who have smeared him as weird. Still, he is an articulate,
he is fucking weird
voice of the national common good conservatism school at the heart of the current political realignment. And he has a good record of support for Israel and opposition to anti-Semitism. But, like Trump, his loyalty to Carlson seems to have overridden his principles. When asked to disavow him...
No, it hasn't overridden his principles. His principles are anti-Semitic, and he hangs out with anti-Semitic pricks.
The senator tried to change the subject to cancel culture and pledged his support for freedom of speech.
Which is to say, yes, he is anti-Semitic.
Of course, that wasn't the issue. Cooper has every right to spout whatever lies he wants on his own podcast or anywhere else that will happen. But it isn't asking too much for Vance to stay away from someone giving endorsement and a platform to a fascist Holocaust denier and fan.
Well, yeah, but maybe, here's the thing, Jonathan-y. Let me just suggest something. Maybe the fact that he hangs out with these kind of people tells us something about where he stands on these things. What about that possibility? Like, I would imagine that Jonathan Tobin, a guy I really had never heard of until I started having JNS TV show up in my YouTube recs, I would imagine he does not have a whole lot of anarcho-communist, anti-Zionist Jewish friends at his fucking break the fast breakfast, after Yom Kippur. I just, it's a feeling I got. Because we're in different moral universes. Whereas Trump and Vance hang out with this guy and apparently do not find anything he says too objectionable or to cut those ties, because he's in their moral universe. And he's very much, and they know this, in the moral universe of the suckholes who support him. But Jonathan is not going to tell us that, because that would screw up his entire extremely poorly thought out point.
Fabulous. Yet that is what he refused to do. Vance was scheduled to appear on Carlson's national tour, in which he interviewed an array of marginal celebrities and extremists. Rather than opting out of the event, which was to be held in Hershey, Pennsylvania, he kept his commitment. The program was, unlike some of the other Carlson live shows, an openly political event.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like, so... But are you gonna draw any conclusions from the fact that these are the people that he is willing to tolerate in his entourage? Like, maybe the people pointing out that when he says anti-Semitic shit that's anti-Semitic have a point? Because these are the people he hangs out with?
How could it have been otherwise with a vice presidential candidate appearing in the nation's most important swing state? And, as I predicted, Vance never challenged his buddy for hosting coup.
Of course not.
Instead, it was an hour-long partisan laugh fest. The two friends focused on boosting the Trump fans' ticking. For Carlson...
Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like maybe they actually have a lot in common, and maybe if fucking Tucker Carlson is problematic, and whoa Nelly, yes, he is fucking problematic, maybe that means that the people who specifically, deliberately keep him in their midst rather than kicking him out might be a bit dodgy themselves.
It was more proof of how bulletproof he is among Trump's inner circle. For Vance, it was a disgrace, which he ought not to be allowed to live down. Curiously, the same outlets that are quick to cry anti-Semitism about Trump and label Vance as weird for espousing normative views about the importance of the family as the foundation.
Normative views about... That's cute. No, that was not what he said. He had this whole wonderful thing about this quiverful bullshit about, like, women as breeding pods. That was a little bit fucking weird. But, I mean, and if the idea here is that they're not pointing out enough about, like, mainstream pro-Israel anti-Semitism, which... I would agree, because that is the main kind of anti-Semitism there is these days, is coming from pro-Israel people because they get a pass. As, like, Jonathan Tobin gave his boy Trump a pass on that very ground. But, I mean, you can't say that this is about partisan bias. It sounds more like they...
of civilization were uninterested in following up on the story. His event with Carlson went unnoticed in the New York Times and most liberal publications. Nor were even those liberal Jewish groups, who are always ready to pile on Trump, drawn to holding Vance accountable for an event that put the GOP stamp of approval on Carlson.
Well, I mean, not for the first time. I mean, the stamp of approval's fucking been there. If you work for Fox News, as he did for a long time, that means the GOP's actually kind of happy with you. And yeah, he fucked up at one point, but clearly, that has not actually harmed his relationships with the fucking party.
Most liberals seem too busy denying or minimizing anti-Semitism on the left, while overhyping marginal Trumpian gaffes into a
Oh, see, but wait, huh? So, liberals are too busy denying anti-Semitism on the left, by which he means thinking Palestinians are human beings with rights, and therefore they didn't attack J.D. Vance for being associated with anti-Semitic conspiracy monger Tucker Carlson? That's your explanation? Why? What? What possible relevance does the left have to do with any of this?
Alleged proof of right-wing Jew hatred to notice the real thing. It's also possible that their concerns about the topic are entirely lacking in genuine conviction.
Well, I mean, you can tell that they are lacking in genuine conviction because, again, they give pro-Israel anti-Semitism a pass. The very people he's talking about, they will happily indulge all sorts of bullshit about how it's anti-Semitic when somebody says from the river to the sea, or, you know, points out that Israel is in the habit of destroying fucking hospitals full of people. They will certainly indulge the idea that that's anti-Semitic, but they will not indulge the idea that Zionism is at all anti-Semitic, or that people can even just be anti-Semitic and Zionist at the same time.
We don't know what this will mean for a putative second Trump administration. Will Carlson have the president's ear on the Middle East this time? I doubt it.
Well, but I mean, most Jews don't live in the Middle East. Like, if anti-Semitism is the concern, what about there are more Jews living here in the U.S. than in Israel, and the majority of Jews actually live live outside of Israel. So maybe it's not so much whether he has his ear on the Middle East as whether he has his ear domestically, for example. Like, I mean, I can't help remembering that the Squirrel Hill synagogue shooter, that piece of shit, hated Palestinians. Big Zionist him.
But until we know who will serve as Trump's foreign policy team, we can't be entirely sure. The one thing we do know is that tolerance for an anti-Semite like Carlson sends a terrible message to the country.
Okay, but Trump is the one tolerating him. Like, as you've pointed out, he doesn't only tolerate him, he's made him part of the entourage. So, how does this reflect worse on the liberal media than it does on the man himself?
And undermines Trump's effort not just to win the Jewish vote, but to also dismiss the false charges that he's a Jew hater.
The false charges. You just got done explaining how one of his closest associates goes around platforming neo-Nazis. That doesn't sound like there's a slam dunk acquittal on that case right there. That actually sounds like maybe he's got a case to answer. I think it would make it past committal anyway.
Those on both sides of the partisan divide are often quite skilled at sorting out the essential facts about candidates from the noise their campaigns and their opponents' broadcasts about. That's certainly true for Trump support. And it may be just as much the case for those who back Harris. Was a recent.
So which part of this is the noise, though? You just got done saying that the real anti-Semitism is like Tucker Carlson, and he's not wrong there. But Trump, you pointed out he's in the Trump entourage, and now is that the noise? Like, what the fuck is this? Like, you just got done saying that this is what they should have been focusing on, and now you're saying the fact that this guy has the ear of fucking Donald Trump, your guy, means that is not in any way a reflection on him.
An insightful piece published.
Make up your fucking mind.
Has been subtly signaling left-wing Democrats to ignore the pro-Israel boilerplate lines in some of her speeches, and instead realize.
I mean, I don't know that saying that the expansion of Israel is a necessity for the security of the United States, for example, is really a boilerplate line. That actually, it's like, I feel like he must have misspoken. I actually heard that live, but I can't for the life of me figure out what the hell he was talking about. That he could have, how he could have misspoken. It feels like that was he meant to say something else, but I mean, and he certainly would have meant to say that, because there is the U.S. likes to play coy about this. They don't like to acknowledge Israeli expansionism, even as they support it. So I feel like he misspoke. I can't figure out how the hell he misspoke, like what that was supposed to be, that it came out that badly mangled. But that wasn't a boilerplate line.
That she shares their animus for the Jewish state. When push comes to shove...
She said that she will, under no circumstances, end military aid to the genocide or even make it conditional in any way, even though U.S. law requires it to be conditional. All military aid under U.S. law has to be conditional. It's just that those laws don't fucking matter, because the only people responsible for enforcing them are the people who violate them.
No matter which candidate or party you support, the obligation to call out tolerance for anti-Semitism.
Like, for example, keeping an anti-Semite in your entourage as a political campaign?
Should always be prioritized over partisan loyalty.
Again, he keeps on saying partisan loyalty. He just said his two examples are in the same fucking party. They're not even, like, opponents in any way. They're close associates. Like, did you edit this, my dude?
Thanks for listening. Please remember to tune in every day for...
No. Yeah. Won't be doing that again soon. Oh, I mean, that was a wild take. I still don't understand how he wrote that. Like, obviously it's bullshit. This is a channel that specializes in bullshit. Okay? I expect that. But this is, like, incoherent bullshit. Got some Darman. Guy finds new family inside his house. Which, I mean, when I immediately saw that, is like, is he doing a Palestine allegory with that? But it's fucking Darman. There's no way he's doing that. So we got... Oh, well, that's actually coming soon, so we haven't got chatting before Peter Coffin's new doc on horseshoe theory, which, horseshoe, 2 words, neat. Launching Peace MAGA at Trump Tower from Caleb Muppet. That's a short one. Let's have a look at that. It hasn't escaped my attention that my little animation there taking the piss out of Caleb Muppet and his little cult is actually better quality than the actual production values of the stuff that the cult itself has come up with. And I'm rather proud of that. That is one of my first computer animations ever, and I think it came out very nicely. Okay, so here we go. Peace MAGA. Yeah. Like, how the hell is that supposed to work, incidentally?
So we just loaded up the banner and the PVC pipes, and we're headed up to Central Park. Let's see how this goes.
What's up with this music?
We have the banner out, and now we're getting the zip ties on.
Well, why? We don't need to see the process of putting up a banner. I don't think.
How's it going, guys?
Alright.
Alright.
1, 2, 3. Beautiful.
Oh god, they are really just going all in on this bullshit. This idea that Trump supposedly was the harbinger of peace, of a peaceful reunification or something like that. And I can't stress enough that that is just so the opposite of the reality. What actually happened, for people who don't remember, is that after years of the U.S. basically doing nothing and the relations between the DPRK and South Korea stagnating, the two states got together and decided to have bilateral talks, shutting out the U.S. to see if they could reach some kind of understanding on their own without outside interference. Now, the U.S. was freaked out about this. Yeah, there was all sorts of stuff freaking out in the media, like the dominant media in the U.S., about these bilateral talks, because the U.S. has an explicit policy that no decision can be made about the Korean Peninsula without the U.S. being involved in shaping it. And so it's like all this talk about, you know, these talks have to be stopped. We can't allow this to happen. All hell will break loose. Will, you know, there will be no place for us on the Korean Peninsula. Which, I mean, yeah, they should not be on the Korean Peninsula. And so Trump's job there was to fuck up those talks, and he did that. He fucked up the talks. It was not a good thing. But what's wild is that these motherfuckers are taking this and treating it as if he actually, just because he shook hands with Kim Jong-un, as if he was actually doing something positive in Korea, as opposed to representing U.S. interests in preventing something positive in Korea, which indeed he did quite successfully.
No, it's not gonna work.
Is this all this is gonna be? Them, like, comedy footage of them not managing to put up a banner? Oh, it's bending.
So now we want to cut some poles and cut the other pole in half.
So they didn't check to see whether the... See, this is why the CPI is so important. They're so well organized. I mean, they're very well organized, this cult. They apparently did not check to see if the PVC pipe that they had bought significant lengths of to put up this shitty-ass banner would actually do that. So now they're having to go and cut new stands for it?
All right, so we're here at Trump Tower. Noah and I made it. We seem to have lost track of Phil along the way. He stopped to buy some water. Hopefully he's with us soon, but mission is accomplished. We got the banner to Trump Tower. Only peace can make America great again.
This is the man that we want Donald Trump to be. Here on this banner, you will see the greatest thing that Donald Trump did in his entire presidency.
Right. Like, I mean, the mythologizing is impressive. They have created a cinematic universe around this, and they are sticking to it. And, I mean, what's really great about this is just recently they took this show on the road. We saw it on stream. They're appearing at Mooney-owned venues. The Unification Church, the far-right, obsessively anti-communist, CIA-linked cult. And it's like, you're listing exactly two groups of, I mean, between Trump and the Unification Church, those are two obvious groups that are dead set against what the CPI pretends to stand for.
He went and became the first president to ever visit the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea.
Who cares? So he visited. I visited fucking Newfoundland once. I don't think that makes sense.
This is a country that's been technically at war with the United States since the 1950s.
I mean, visited is also a little bit much. I don't know if he walked a foot inside over the northern limit line.
Trump,
the actual talks happened in Vietnam.
What Orthodox told you, we're our enemies. They told you these people are horrible. They told you these people are terrible. that they will never do anything good for us. There's a reason for that. It's called money. It's called power. They want to...
Yeah, and that's why Trump obviously went and fucked up the bilateral talks by bringing in all sorts of preconditions that everybody knows are non-starters, like giving up any kind of nuclear deterrence despite absolutely no concessions in terms of like not making constant threats to like extremely vivid threats to North Korea on a regular basis. So I mean, he killed the talks, but they have this picture of the fucking handshake, and so they pretend that this was...
To weaken you mentally. They want
Hey,
to
Shakespeare, how you doing?
Stomp you out and tell you, why bother? Why get out of bed in the morning? Why do anything worthwhile? No!
Well, I mean, I'm all for doing worthwhile things, but how do you combine that with being in the Caleb Maupin cult?
Understand, peace is possible. But you must give it a chance. Giving peace a chance is giving yourself a chance.
Like, wow, they're doing some serious organizing. Look at all the people who are just sort of looking over there and being like, what the fuck is this? They're facing a bunch of buses. Okay, so, I mean, there are probably a lot of people in those buses, so that's not nothing. But it's like, they have about all the pulling power of boiling vinegar. Oh, not bad.
That only peace can make America great again. And that what Donald Trump did on North Korea, that was awesome. And we want that to continue. We want more peace.
Like, this guy calls himself an anti-imperialist, and here he is, like, rewriting the history of imperialist sabotage of bilateral Korean talks.
We want more trade. We want more diplomacy. The real America is not
what the fuck is that?
It's not the criminals on Wall Street.
We don't control our government anymore.
It's not the criminals on... What do you think Donald Trump is?
That our republic is being run by half forces that very much are unelected or subverting our democracy.
Rebuild America. Rebuild...
Like, look at this. Is this part of their entourage? Or did he decide to just join this? Like, what is this?
Our country, instead of bombing countries around the world, we need Donald Trump to stand up.
Trump bombed countries all around the world. I mean, that's kind of the job.
Military-industrial complex. We need
Which he
Donald
didn't.
Trump to stand up to the war lobby. We want to put America first, and not the criminals who are lining their pockets on Wall Street with American taxpayer money.
What do you... Like, you stand for literally nothing at this point. It's impressive.
Go bomb children overseas. Believe the oligarchs at your own peril. Believe them and sleep under a bridge. Believe them and not have a job. Believe them and understand you'll never have health care. Believe them and see what you get. Let's believe in one another.
Okay, let's believe in one another. Why do we need to, like, endorse a fucking billionaire? I mean... Those two things are kind of inconsistent, don't you think? Believe each other, but let's mythologize the class enemy?
Believe that peace is possible.
It's going good. I mean, people have been reacting well. Small crowds will form when we have the bullhorn out, and then we'll take a...
Why don't we get to see any of these small crowds? Or does he just mean the people who are walking past, since it is a busy footpath?
Break for a little bit, they'll disperse.
Downtown.
Earlier, the Secret Service came by.
Lower Manhattan.
I thought that was interesting. I think we're making an impact.
Russia's not our enemy. China's not our enemy. North Korea is not our enemy. Our enemy is the war lobby. Our enemy is the military-industrial complex. And we really love them.
I mean, this is the guy who likes to claim that he's, like, the only real Marxist, and here he is, like, fucking sucking up to a billionaire.
They take all the money they spend on bombs and tanks and weapons and rebuild this country. Only peace will make America great again. We need to go back to this moment when Donald Trump...
And why the hell are they doing this here? Like, who are they trying to attract? This is like one of the richest areas of the U.S. that they're in. Like, they've specifically decided to go in front of Trump Tower, which I can see because they're, like, sucking up to Trump because they have garbage politics. They have their garbage politics people, and nothing that they say is even remotely serious or consistent. But, like, this is not an area where you have a whole lot of people just sort of standing around. I thought they were going to set up in that park, which would have made, which they've done in the past and would have made a bit more sense in terms of the likelihood of people actually gathering. But look at all that space. If anyone, like, stops for a few minutes, then they back up the entire footpath.
President of the United States of America went to a country that we have technically been at war with since 1952 and said, let's give peace
I mean,
a
technically,
chance.
the U.S. has been at war with all of Korea since 1945.
Want Trump to be a peace candidate. Every poll says that the American people want peace.
We're out here.
Yeah, and if you had any kind of fucking class analysis at all, you would understand why it is that, despite the fact that most people are kind of sick of all the constant warmongering and genocide and spending huge amounts of money on blowing up other people's countries, and would kind of like to have infrastructure that works and maybe get to go to the doctor more than once every 10 years, that doesn't happen. Because it is in the interest of rich fucks, like the guy in your fucking banner there, to have it that way. Like, this is his fucking anti-imperialist analysis.
We're doing amazing work today.
Really?
Speaking out loud and proud about what we should be doing about making the world a better place. I'm really excited about it. Everyone has been amazing. Our message is getting through to people. I heard people actually talking as I walked by, saying, give peace a chance.
We need jobs and schools and healthcare and education in this country, not wars around the world.
And why do you think that this is... Like, what kind of fucking praxis is this? Like, what's with the fucking outfit, too?
Not death, destruction, and militarism. Only peace can make America great again. Why is it that people in North Carolina are left
He's dressed like a fucking Fed.
in the Middle East? America's working families have been left behind, while our leaders focus on wars in other countries. America first means working families first. It means no more wars. It means
and like, working families is some bullshit Democrats use to, like, suggest the working class without ever acknowledging that there is the working class. Now he's just talking to a row of taxis and cops. Like, what's the
a
point?
hand of friendship and cooperation to countries around the
They
world.
won't.
We are out here in front of Trump Tower today to say we deserve that. And we do not want World War III. That's right. They want to weaken you mentally. They want to...
Si no quería la tercera guerra mundial, ¿por qué está manifestando frente a un hotel, weón?
Capture your spirit, stomp you out, and tell you why bother? Why get out of bed in the morning? Why do anything worthwhile? No.
You already said all that shit.
Americans don't want their tax dollars to be dumped into a hole, funding wars around the world so that bankers on Wall Street can play a game of dominating the economies of the world, while Americans are starving.
Look at the woman behind him. She's also trying to figure out where he's going with this sentence, at the same time as he himself is not sure where he's going with this sentence.
Living in ditches all across this country, while there are homeless people sitting 3 blocks from the White House. In the richest country on the face of the earth, so-called, you have homeless people on every corner, on every street, on every city. Why is that? Only peace can make
Hey, like, capitalism, I would guess.
America great again. Only peace can make America great again.
Who is this for?
Can make America great again. If Donald Trump wants to get back in the White House, he's saying that he needs to do what the American people want him to do, and that is...
No, he doesn't, because the whole way that this electoral system is set up is, as long as nobody is even proposing to do what most people would like, it doesn't matter. Then it is not detrimental to your campaign to be against what most people want. That, which is also, incidentally, why everyone, like the entire ruling class, were so freaked out about Jeremy Corbyn when he actually became leader. They were cool with the idea of him being in a leadership contest in 2015 after the dismal failure of yet another right-wing Labour campaign. But because they wanted the appearance of a debate, they were quite forthright about that. But then he went and overwhelmingly won, and all the candidates, like the fucking ruling class had been backing, got like barely in the 2-figure percentages. Then they totally freaked out, and they freaked out because Corbyn at least looked like an alternative. And that fucks up the entire game, because if you're even trying to appeal to working people, then it shows up the fact that everybody else isn't. And suddenly, either they have to, or they have to find some way to basically shut you up. And the result ended up being that there was an internal unit within the Labour Party whose entire job was sabotaging the general elections that were contested under Corbyn's leadership.
To make peace around the world. Let's stand up for each other. Let's believe in one another. Let's believe that people...
You already said all this. Did they, like, loop this?
This is the man that you want Donald Trump to be. This brought tears to
Wait, I feel like, he said this too.
my eyes. I was so moved when you...
Are you sure that wasn't because you were just getting a bit of a whooping from one of the members who you forced to do survival sex work for you?
See the President of the United States and the President of North Korea shaking hands.
That's not his title. Like, at least get the title. He is the General Secretary of the Workers' Party of Korea. Like, if you're going to pretend to be on side with them, like, maybe get that right.
What the new world could be. This is who we want Donald Trump to be. We want him to be a peace president. We want him to be a peace leader.
Yeah, and I would like regular chocolate ice cream to taste like real chocolate, but that's not gonna actually make that happen because it's not that thing. Like, what's the point of saying we want this asshole to be a good person? Yeah, that would be nice if he was a good person, but he isn't one. He's this asshole. Like, what exactly is the whole? This is even wilder than previous versions, because previous versions would try to claim that he really was the peace candidate or something like that, which he wasn't. He absolutely was not. There wasn't a peace candidate. But now they seem to be saying he isn't, but he ought to be. And there are like some guys standing there under the number 724 who seem to be laughing at them. And I totally understand.
And this election.
I'm hungry. I'm really, really hungry. I mean, it was hard work walking it over here. It was like, what, like a 2-mile walk?
Yeah. It seems like fucking pointless. Like, why are you gonna stand there on a sidewalk with this useless banner and just sort of say how you would really like it if Donald Trump were an entirely different person? And of course, if you have to admit that he isn't that guy and you would just like him to be that guy, then why the fuck are you sucking up to him in the first place? But this is a level of logic that you cannot expect from a Caleb Muppet cult.
And it's the wind. It's like a big sail.
Challenging but rewarding. You know, we actually had fun.
How? Why? Like, what was the fun part of that? That looked like just boring slog. Okay, we are slowly reaching the point where it is time to wrap up for the evening. Let's see if there's anything extremely short to look at. We already looked at that. Well, for the last few minutes, we're going to look at a little bit more about with Caleb Muppet talking about not being normal. And we've seen he definitely is exceptional.
You go into uncomfortable situations and you learn how to handle yourself. You develop more.
I don't need to
confidence.
think about like Caleb Moffman handling himself. When the whistleblowers came out in CPI Mark 1, I heard enough about him handling himself.
Right? I mean, it's not helping the person in any way, but it's about getting the person attached to this kind of toxic social media influencer, triggering them and isolating them in a way that is very lucrative.
It kind of sounds like the sort of dynamic that your former members have said you set up in your cult.
Sinister. And the person doesn't become stronger, and the person doesn't become better, and the person continues to think yes.
Yeah, and keep in mind, just now we saw his idea of what makes people stronger and better.
No, I'm different. I'm separate. I'm weird. I can't relate to anybody. It's awful.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's cringe, but it makes content. The fact that you're, like, awful and weird and can't relate to anybody and are, like, constantly giving some weird-ass Steve Buscemi hello fellow kids vibe. But, I mean, we've just sort of decided to use you for content and drag you for filth.
Mullen does to young white men, what various feminist podcasts do to young women, what various LGBT-oriented material do to young trans people and young gay people. It is really abusive, and it is self-serving.
Like what is like? Keep in mind that this guy has actually already come out as just really fucking transphobic and homophobic. But, like, he's not giving any examples. Of course not.
It is self-serving, and it often kind of leads to a cycle of rage, where they're, on the one hand, they're playing up these people's trauma and making them afraid of the world, making them feel isolated.
You think that people who have experienced trauma need someone acknowledging their trauma to make them afraid of things? You think that's how trauma works?
Feel hopeless. On the other hand, they're inciting them against somebody all the time. There's always some transphobe out there. There's always some racist, sexist white male out there.
Yes. Yeah, there literally is. There literally is. Like, that isn't the fault of the people who point to it. Like, if Caleb takes a shit in the corner, that shit is already there regardless if anyone points to it. It's not the fault of the person who says, hey, what's that in the fucking corner? It's the fault of the person who took a shit in the corner.
Some feminists that are out there oppressing white men. Yeah, there's always some bad guy that you are supposed to rage against. So you're raging, and then you're feeling powerless and weak. It's a really, really toxic mindset. And I don't want to do...
Well, which is so funny because he's talking about, raging powerlessly against some random bad guy when his entire political praxis, if you can call it that, is that. It is literally the thing he just described. But now it is time to wrap up. Thank you to everyone who joined in. Nice to see you, Shakespeare. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I expect I will be back tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. And just so you know, I'm probably going to take a break from both of my streams next week because the Polyglot Conference is starting, which is an amazing event. If you're into languages, check it out. It's an all online event. It's international, and there are like all sorts of talks about language stuff and language learning and linguistics, and there are these like practice rooms for all sorts of languages where you can go and just talk with people in whatever language you want to talk with people in. And it's just an amazing, very positive vibe. Good, good people. I highly recommend it. It's the Polyglot Conference. I'm going to be there and probably like all, doing things there like basically all day from the 10th to I think it's the 13th or so that it ends. But, so I'm not going to have energy to do this, so that will be a break from streaming. But I will be back tomorrow night. And in the meantime, let me just drop the link to the Discord in chat. invite people. Where if you're not already there, I highly recommend it. It's where we can keep in touch, and if you see videos that you'd like me to react to and stuff like that on stream, you can drop links in there, and it's pretty chill and not a huge commitment in terms of reading messages, but I'd love to see you there if you're not there already. Have a good night, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.